Don't miss our quick and easy tutorial to painting urban bases.
Spiky bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Baer, and today we are showing you a quick and easy, actually so easy, it's only like 6 steps, and it's quite possibly the literal easiest tutorial I've ever done. I was actually surprised. This is 6 quick steps to painting urban bases, aka Necromunda style. And I'll have to admit, this tutorial was definitely inspired by my friend Max over at Hellfire Painting. I picked up an Ultramarine army off him, and I'm like, yo, bro, how'd you paint these Ultramarine bases? And he's like, oh, I actually wrote a post about it. I'm like, let me see this. And then I looked at it and I was like, yep, that's super easy. It turns out it took longer to put the paint in the airbrush, and you don't even have to use an airbrush. You can use a dry brush. You really only need aerosol can of black and maybe a little bit of spritz of like a uniform gray from Army Painter. Both staple primers you should probably have in your hobby arsenal to begin with. And from there, it's just either dry brushing or airbrushing. I wouldn't even use an airbrush unless you're doing a grip of like 40 or 50 of these bases for a whole army, like I plan to do for my Custode army, or you know, additions to the Ultramarines I picked up from Max. But man, Max is the master when it comes to painting stuff quick, and today we have taken that article and putting it into a video tutorial. So stay right there. We'll show you how easy it is to paint some really cool looking urban bases. So our first step, well, this is actually step 1 and step 2 combined, is to see if what we're going to put on the base actually fits on the base. So that's always good. You want to measure once, or measure twice, cut once. So we're going to measure once and then paint twice. I feel like I messed up that analogy, but either way, you get what I'm saying right there. Then we're going to prime the base. Now this is I think this is Cyberpunk Industrial from Elrik's Hobbies. This is a fun one. I'm going to use all of these on my Custodes because unfortunately the GW Necromunda bases don't come in the size for the Custodes. I love the look of Necromunda, and I think it'd be really cool because these guys are obviously on Earth, like chilling in the protecting the Emperor. So I figured this would kind of be appropriate for that, but unfortunately I couldn't find something that was that close. So we're gonna go with Elrik's Hobbies Cyberpunk Industrial bases right here. Now step 2 of this process is to go do a light spritz just so it looks like it kind of snowed onto this black primer with a gray. And for this one, we're going to use the Army Painter Uniform Gray. So I'm actually going to take this outside and just give it a really light spritz real quick. Now this, you're probably like, wait a minute, why wouldn't you use the airbrush for this? Because if you have all your bases already primed up, you can just like lay them out on a piece of cardboard and just give it a really light spritzing, and save you so much time and effort than firing up the airbrush and putting the paint through it, and just for one light pass. So a few minutes later, we have a spritzed base there. It probably doesn't look much different, but I assure you it is slightly spritzed. Here's some of the other bases I'm painting for my assassins using the GW plastic ones, and you can kind of tell the difference because they're still on the sprue. But I don't like these bases for anything other than maybe rank and file troops or something, or maybe some people that you just won't see them because you're putting things on top of there. These resin bases are way more detailed, so I'm definitely happier with that. So now that we got that done, it's time to jump in and start grabbing some browns. Our first brown is going to be the darker Rhinox hide. This is a great color, a great dark brown color. I used it on my Ogres. And we're just going to get in here, we're just going to kind of spritz it in random places to kind of start to accent the overall base. So we're just firing up the airbrush. Now you could do this with a dry brush. You definitely don't need an airbrush for this whole technique whatsoever. Just a very, very light poofy dry brush can do the same effect, but I had the paint loaded. I didn't even think about it. I am just pre-programmed to use the dry brush. So we're just gonna get in here and just lightly hit some of these areas from really far back, kind of like that. So we covered a good chunk of the base with the darker Skag Brown, and now we're going to take, or excuse me, the darker Rhinox hide. I have Skag Brown on the mind here. And now we're going to take the lighter Skag Brown, and we're going to cover some new areas, but also kind of feather it into some of these darker areas here too, till we cover, I would say, 50 to, I don't know, 75% of the base with brown. So we're just going to grab the airbrush real quick and kind of fire up some new areas, but also kind of hit some of the older ones, kind of like that, but then also go into some of these areas that might need a little bit of brown loving too, something like that. Now it's the dry brush phase, so we're just going to grab one of our, I would say our second favorite gray here on the channel, Celestra Gray, and just get a nice, we're going to get a bunch of paint on our finger there. I hate these little things back here sometimes, these little, what do you call them, hinges. Sometimes if you're not careful, you will get paint on your fingers and not realize it, and then dab it onto your miniature and then be like, uh-oh. Anyways, so we're just going to go a liberal dry brush. I would say not too heavy, but not too light either, over top of everything. So this is just going to fade it all back. It's just over even the browns and everything else. Once you get all of that dry brushed, there's only one more coat left, and that's our super favoriteest gray, the Ulthan Gray right here, which is a really, really interesting white kind of blue gray, but kind of in between. I don't know how to explain it, and I haven't found another one out there since, but I love this gray. So we get a little bit of it on our dry brush here, and then we're just going to hit some of the strategic areas, just like maybe the tops of certain areas here, and just kind of any place that makes sense for contrast, and then maybe some of these areas in between that aren't brown quite yet, just weaving it in nice and easy. So that is pretty much, as you can see here, I'm pretty much done with the base. So very, very, very easy step that's going to start to really kind of pull this whole base together. And the very last step is to go around the edge of the base and get that nice black contrast on there. And my go-to for that is Vallejo Surface Primer, the black stuff, because it is a very pigmented type deal and it will stick in one pass. You just have to be very careful when you're applying it, that you have a nice wet brush and you're not making any lines or anything in there, and that your paint isn't chunky. It's something to be said definitely for having a little bit of water or cleaner on your brush already, so that you're not getting chunkiness in here, because it's only going to be one coat. So we're going to go around the rest of it with this paint. And there it is. It dries fast. You just have to be a little careful going around the lip there so that you don't get any on the top right here. And that's pretty much it. You could give it a nice watered down glaze on the top with like some black or something like that if you really wanted to. I'm good to go on this. I feel like this is just enough for me, because I don't want to overpower all the work and all the bright colors we're going to have up top on this Custody here. So we're going to put the Custody Knights all together and get you some shots of that for the end of the video here.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. Thelongwar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos,